everybody. We have some persons who just joined. Welcome to our virtual village seminar where we're talking about getting married, staying married, and tonight we're specifically, discussing maintaining our marriage, keeping the spice in our marriage. So the activity that is being done right now is that on the screen that we're sharing, there are a few spices and you are supposed to select one spice. You're only able to choose one. You're going to select one spice and then we'll reveal to you what the spices mean. Please note again, do not quote us on these things. This is our interpretation, and if it is that you have any, please feel free to share in a good and godly way. Thank you. That's a good one.
All right. So we can start. We can have
All
some
right,
persons
we can
begin to
start.
share.
Go ahead and share. If you want to share verbally, just
Raise your hand.
raise your hand
we'll
and
acknowledge.
we'll unmute, or you can put it in the chat and Mr. Thompson will feed us that information. You can go right ahead. Thanks.
So, Sister Matty says vanilla.
Yeah.
Do you want to
Okay.
share with us, Sister Matty? Oh, well, actually, she shared it privately, so I don't know.
Oh, Jesus. You should have let it be. Vanilla.
How about Galaxy S8 who says Scotch bonnet? You want to share with us Galaxy S8? I know, but I just wanted to know why they chose that one, and then we'll tell them what it means. Nobody?
Nobody. All right. So let's
I'll share.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. I chose Scotch bonnet.
Yes.
I have to tell you why I chose Scotch bonnet.
Well, I mean, if you want to.
If you want to.
People think Scotch bonnet is only spicy, but
Yes.
it depends on how you use it and how much you use. And I think for me, that's how I am. It depends on how much I give you and at what portion that I know if you can manage the spice or not.
Woo, 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 woo. All right. Thank you.
All right. Well, do you want to tell us what
All right. No, gosh, I wanted that one for last.
Okay, all right. Well,
All
we
right.
can have
So
someone
we're
else.
going to start with. Can I give the interpretations now?
Yes, we have a number of persons who have said vanilla.
Vanilla. Okay.
Dale Evans, Galaxy S8. So, you want to start with vanilla?
I don't have it for vanilla yet. It soon come. The Lord soon downloaded in my spirit what the vanilla means. So I'm going to work with what I have so far. So we're going to start with the big one, right? So we're going to start with the bell peppers.
Yes,
So the
yes,
sweet
yes.
pepper, or some persons call it, bell peppers. For me, the bell peppers, Warren, they're very big, but they have different colors, and so the bell pepper indicates variation. So you get a variety, you get a little mix. And say, for example, if I was mixing a little coolie and a little variety, yeah. So it means variety. However, the bell pepper, it's not pepper in it, so there's no spice, but it adds color to your
flavor.
meal
There's
and
flavor.
gives flavor, but there's no peppery, there's no burn.
So you want a very mild.
It not hot. Big
That's
but
why-
it not hot. That's why I like the Scotch bonnet.
So,
Hot and spicy.
Yes, because Scotch bonnet is my thing. So,
Hot and spicy.
the bell peppers add variety, it adds color and flavor, right? But it's not very hot. So if you chose sweet peppers or bell peppers, as some persons call them, it means that, for the entire period of your marriage, there's person who still wants to come in, for the entire period of your marriage, there's going to be variety, flavor, but there's not much spice per se in terms of pepperness. Good, that's my interpretation. Please do not quote me. Good. All right. So we're moving on now to cinnamon. If you chose cinnamon, for me, I thought about this since yesterday and I've been laughing to myself. For me, cinnamon is very earthy. It comes from the back. Warren, can you just come? Let me just say, I'm expressing to you all my spicy thoughts. Right. So cinnamon is like, earthy. It's the bark from the tree, kind of thing. And I don't know. It's mild. Cinnamon counts. So like for me, if I drink a nice cup of cinnamon tea, you know, it makes me relax. So if I chose cinnamon, if you chose cinnamon out there, it means that you want somebody said, to maintain, you know, a relaxed kind of a marriage where, you know, it's always just so calm and relaxed. Probably very romantic. I never thought of that. Probably very romantic. I don't know. Huh?
Erica, remember cinnamon is also very versatile.
Yes.
So you can put it in cakes.
Yes.
You can also put it in your pork and your chicken.
Yes.
You can put it in your tea.
Yes.
So you can put it in your porridge.
Right. So we have some versatility there, right? So, you know, if you have a flexible wife, I mean, young and healthy, praise God. Let's move on. Right? So, but I don't know, the vanilla. Yes, I have it.
Yes, right.
Spirit
Yes,
just don't know it to me.
what's
Listen,
that
you see the vanilla? It's dark, very rich. Very rich, very
bland.
It's not bland. Just like cinnamon, you can put the vanilla in almost anything in your blend up, in your punch, oats, strong back, and them kind of something there. Can I say you can put it in your cake?
Someone wants to say something?
Go ahead.
Yes, vanilla is versatile in the fact that a little bit goes a long way.
So like I have a chef in the room, we need to talk.
Yeah, to get a lot of flavor in whatever you put it in. So a little bit of vanilla goes a very long way.
Yes, because it will burn it. So when I was little, I had vanilla. I drank it. I drank it. And it smells so good. You know what? Vanilla also has some kind of attraction. Like it will stir you. Yeah, because, you know, it smells so good, you just want to have it good.
We see our calling and our purpose.
I'm not sure who is talking. Right. So continue. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's right.
Right. So sorry we had to mute everybody because somebody's thing was on. All right. So it comes down to the final two now. This is the 100-meter finals of the spices. Everybody knows I like a 100-meter final. You know, I was talking to Mr. Thompson this evening about the whole nutmeg fiasco, and I was explaining to him that my interpretation of having spice in your marriage in terms of having the nutmeg there, it just means that you have to dig very deep. You know, you have to crack the shell in order to get that little nut that is there.
It's hard to get.
But it's hard to get. But even when you get that nut, you can't eat it once. You have to just use a small little piece, just a little tips. You know, so I like the nut. There's some kind of admiration for the nutmeg. I don't know. I feel like I changed my mind from the discussion. You say it's hard to get.
It's hard to get to.
Yes.
But when you get it, you really enjoy it.
Yes.
I can't take too much at once. You have to take a little piece.
And a little piece.
What are you talking about again, Maureen?
Meg, we're talking about
nutmeg in your porridge and your cereal.
I heard a little piece argument and some.
All right, and for Scotch bonnet now, you know, I've been toying with this since yesterday, you know. And if I were to choose between cinnamon and Scotch bonnet peppers, I like hot sauce, you know. You want a little hot sauce in your life. And like the person said earlier, you can't take, you have to use it in moderation. So you can't take too much because you'll get all sorts of burns and, you know, allergic reactions. But for the hot sauce, I don't know, it just sounds very sizzly and hot. I like hot sauce. I chose the bell peppers. I'm a bell pepper? No, sorry, I chose the hot peppers. Am I a Scotch bonnet kind of person?
Yes, you are.
I am? Yeah. I'm a Scotch bonnet kind of girl. You heard that?
All right, so friends,
in all the spice.
Yes, we have some experts with us tonight, you know, to talk with us about, you know, making and keeping it spicy in your marriages. So I'm going to introduce you to Reverend, is that what you say? Anyway, Reverend Judith Johnson Grant, yes, that's her giving her a thumbs up, and Reverend Dayne Grant, husband and wife, ministers of the gospel, of course, but not afraid to talk about the real things. You know? And they've been married for many years now and well experienced. 10 years, you know. So I'm going to. They minister in Portland, right? Reverend Reverend Dayne Grant is pastor for the Port Antonio Circuit of Baptist Churches, and Reverend Judith Grant is a pastor for the St. Margaret's Day Circuit of Baptist Churches. We welcome them. I mean, they're friends of ours, and I'm sure. And we have another guest too. I don't have the full name, but I'll allow Reverend Grant to introduce our sister Mutale. You know, and they're going to be talking with us tonight about how to, you know, just keeping it spicy. You know, years ago, someone told me, she said, you know, when you've been married for many years, you can live together like brother and sister, you know. So that's what we want. We want to be husband and wife, sweethearts. Keep the romance going. So I'm going to turn over to Reverend Grant, either Reverend Dayne Grant or Judith Johnson Grant, whichever one. One of them will take us on through for the night. So thank you very much for coming, guys, and we're looking forward to what you have to share with us tonight.
Yes. Great. Thank you so much, Warren and Erica, for having us this evening. And as you mentioned, both Dayne and I are married. Dayne and I have known each other for almost 18 years now, and we have been married for 10 years this past May. And we like to think that, well, we often use this term of each other, that he's my boyfriend and I'm his girlfriend, because sometimes people enjoy those relationships so much, and when they get married, them settings change. And so we often refer to each other in that way. I have a very special friend who is joining us this evening. I have not known her as long as I've known Dayne, but she is quite special to both of us, particularly to me. She is, as Warren mentioned, and Warren, you did great with the pronunciation of her name. She'll tell you that. She is Mutale Mulenga Kaunda, and she feels okay with you calling her Mutale. Mutale is Zambian, and sometimes we wonder if she's Jamaican, because you say anything to her in patois and she understands. So Mutale is Zambian by birth, and I'm sure she'll say a little bit more about herself a little later. But she has been living in, well, she has lived in South Africa for quite a number of years, and is now living in South Korea. So it's actually what, 9:33 p.m. here for us, and it's what, 11:33 p.m. for you, a.m. for you in South Korea. Yes. So we're so happy that you can join us, Mutale. Let me say very, very good evening to everyone. I realize that it's a mixed gathering. I see some people who I know from other circles. I see some people who I know are not married, but they are listening in because they feel somehow that they can learn from what we are sharing here, and that maybe you too in the future plan to get married. And no pressure here. If you don't feel to get married, somehow you can be a friend, a mentor, a counselor to someone who is married. And so all of you are welcomed here. Are all the kids gone to bed? Because this session is a PG what, 99? So if you are under 99, maybe you need to take your leave right now. But truly, friends, I want us to be at peace, to be comfortable in this session and context. I want to say a very, very special thanks to Warren and Erica for inviting us to share in this way. Warren used the term experts, and I want to withdraw that term, Warren, and just say that we are facilitating the discussions this evening. Amen?
Amen, sister.
All right. All
Okay, so we want to thank you. Warren, I want to use this opportunity though, both you and Erica, to commend you on this initiative of what you call it, a village webinar, virtual village, where we can gather. Certainly at a time like this, I figure it was inspired coming out of this time that we can still come together and we can fellowship, we can learn from each other. And so I want to commend this effort. I also want to commend the presenters who have gone ahead of me, and Mutale and Dayne, these past weeks, in the excellent job that they have done in really sharing and unpacking some very important and yet difficult topics to talk about. So thanks to them, some of them in absentia. I thought that as I shared this evening, I'd want to say a little bit about my connection between Warren and Erica. That over 5 years ago, well, I met Warren maybe over 18 years ago. And at that time, I had no idea that I'd be coming to Portland, which is his hometown. But when I met him, I remember distinctly that he mentioned he was from Portland. And about 5 years or so ago, I had the distinct privilege of meeting the rose that he brought into his life, Erica. Yes. And I had the privilege of walking and journeying with them along with the Reverend Lloyd Richards in their own preparation for marriage. So if you are doing well at your marriage, Erica, I don't have any credit to take, but I just have to say that you listened well in those sessions if you're doing well. So I want to say how very special then this time is for me to come and share with you as you host this very special and important moment. All right, so you've heard before about Dayne. Warren did mention that Dayne is also a congregational pastor. And as you heard, we have both been married, which offers its own dynamics to our relationship. Maybe we'll share a little bit about that later on in the presentation. But Mutale is sharing specifically this evening. Mutale has a PhD in gender and religion from the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. And she's really sharing and spending time with us this evening as she talks about a very, very important Zambian tradition called imbusa. And she'll talk more about it. But for those of us who we're cocking with ears to hear, what is this about? Well, it's one of the aspects of their preparation for marriage, the premarital preparation. And I'm sure you're going to be very, very interested to hear what she has to say to us. So thank you, Mutale, for consenting to join at short notice. And we look forward to hearing from you in a little while. All right, so Erica, I want the privilege of sharing my screen because I am going to be using the assistance of a PowerPoint presentation. Can you enable participant sharing screen, Warren, so that I can share the screen? Suffice it to say that this evening, though some of us, as mentioned, are not married, well, can I ask for a show of hands, those of us who are married? I am seeing the big name here, Mr. and Mrs. Salmon, so I know you're both married. Who is Galaxy J7 Sky? Are you able to rename yourself so that we can be a little bit more personal and intimate in this group? If you don't know how to do
Carfrit.
You are?
Cheryl Carfrit.
Okay, Cheryl. All right, great. Warren, from your end, I think you might be able to rename her screen. I saw an Alcatel joining us earlier. And there's a Galaxy A20S. if you know how to change, to rename yourself, it would be nice if we could see who you are. All right, so do I have access, Warren? Okay, yes. So that's my screen. Great. All right, so as you have heard and as you have participated in the activity shared by one of our hosts, Erica, with the spices, this evening we're talking about staying married. For some of us, it's getting married. And for still others, because I really don't want to discriminate against anybody here, it's encouraging those or knowing as much about marriage, whether or not you will be getting married. And we're not just talking about staying married now, keeping on your ring. We're talking about making and keeping it spicy. And if I can build on the foundation shared by, I think it's Reverend Lloyd Richards last week, he used the analogy of chicken. And he said we can cook chicken every day, every week, every month, but we certainly can't do fried chicken every day, every month, every week. So there's got to be some mixing it up, changing it around, which is very important. That sometimes you're eating it and you're not even sure if it's chicken you're eating. It tastes like seafood, or because you've thrown it on the grill, it's a totally different taste. So that's what we're talking about in terms of the marriage this evening, making and keeping it spicy. So what is it that we want to accomplish in this evening's time together? Our main objective, we want everybody to understand the importance of keeping a marriage spicy. We also want you to be able to devise a blueprint of what spicy looks like for you. And later on in the presentation, I'm going to say some more about the for you part, how unique this should be carefully and uniquely crafted for you. And the third thing I want us to do, because we can talk, is not just talk about what spicy looks like for you, not just understand the importance, but what? Be empowered to work at that plan. So what I'm basically saying is that after this evening, we want action, not a bag of mouth. We want action.
That's right.
So I have thought about, and for those of you who are not married, you can nicely take a note of these questions that I'm going to ask, for they will help you in the future if you should ever get married. And the disclaimer here is that there is no wrong or right answer. This is really just, as the question asks at the top of the screen, how you stay. So Mutale in Jamaica, when we say how you stay, we're asking, where are you at? What's your status? You know, give us a self-check. So that's really what we want to do this evening. I want to hasten to say that I'm not going to take the answers that you come up with to these questions, my questionnaire or my survey. I want for you then to use them and treat them as a self-examination moment, a checkpoint. And I am going to keep reiterating this as I go along, that the discussion this evening will get a bit spicy. So in any way or any form, please don't think that my intention is to offend anyone. All right? So let's get to the first one. And it's very important that you answer these questions individually. Dayne is like, why don't you get on with it? You answer these questions individually, but also reflect on them together as a couple. So, first question. How often do you deliberately plan for time together? How often do you deliberately plan for time together? So the second question is, what is the greatest challenge to you spending time together with your spouse? What is the greatest challenge to you spending time with each other? Think about it. Self-check. We're getting a little hot in here. Does your partner know your sexual fantasies? Does your partner know your sexual fantasies? I mean, all of them? Getting a little hotter still. What sexual position are you great at? And which ones are you not so great at? If your partner is there beside you, maybe it's a good time to laze if you haven't talked about this. What you say, you're not good at any of them? I like having too much fun. All right, next one. Real talk. On whose terms does sex mostly happen? On whose terms does sex mostly happen? Real talk.
Could you repeat that question, please?
On whose terms does sex mostly happen? Who calls the shots when it comes to sex? When I say yes, then yes. When I say no, then no. Who is that person in the relationship? Is it the husband or the wife? All right, moving on to the next.
Someone in the chat is asking if there will be homework.
No worry yourself, a good teacher always gives homework. The question should be, are you prepared for the homework? How often would you like to have sex in a given week? I'm only talking to the married people now. How often would you like to have sex? Well, the unmarried people can't answer, but...
Once.
Who said so?
7 days a week.
I like the sound of that male voice.
Is that Lloyd?
That's what I remember, Richard.
No.
No, it's Patrick.
Oh, it's Patrick.
Patrick, okay.
And my next question is, how often do you actually have sex in a given week? So, all of that is really raised as food for thought, self-check. And, you know, usually I'm a preacher, so I'm used to asking people to examine themselves nearer to the end of the sermon. But I thought that we should begin in this way if we're going to have an honest conversation that can help and assist our marriages, or can help or assist any marriage that we happen to come across. So keep those in mind. I want us to also reflect on the answers that we've given, because one of the things that the questions and the answers reveal is that sometimes men and women, yes, we have men and women, male and female in these marital relationships. And sometimes men and women perceive the questions differently, that's one. And two, they have different answers to the questions. And it reveals what I want to move to talk about next. If we are going to make and keep a marriage spicy, we have to understand each other. And a part of this exercise is really understanding yourself, because that is absolutely important for a marriage. I've heard too many times when people say, I just want to do this to make him happy. I just want to do this for him to be happy, or I want to do this for her to be happy. But really, what do you want? And what do you need? So we have to hold both in a very healthy balance in a marriage. And so we want to move to the next slide and talk about the differences in the male and the female in a marriage. And this is absolutely important, for you are not married to the same sex. You are married to the opposite sex. So let's look at the next slide. I want to put it very basic, very plain, and then move to talk about some other things. So men have penises and women, no, each man has one penis. And women, the woman has a vagina. And as you would see, indicated by the little, what's this now, graphic picture beside, sometimes we can boil down the relationship to the point where we believe that the person we have married is the exact same replica of us and should be the same replica of us. Same replica, should be the replica of us. So, and many times, quite a bit of misunderstanding that stands in the way as a barrier or obstacle to relationships becoming spicy and maintaining that spiciness is the misunderstanding of these major differences between a man and a woman. So at the bottom line of this is that we are married to the opposite sex. So let's look at some of these differences and how they really make and break the relationship. So we established before that men have penises. Is there a man in the group who does not? All right, I think all of us agree that all of the men in the group do have penises. There's often a little thing that Dayne and I joke about, but it talks about essentially the differences or the special characteristics that a man has and brings to a relationship. And all of this, all of who the man is, brings to bear on the relationship. These differences have been made so by God. And whereas you might have points of departure with one or two men, generally, this is how men are. And I mean, it's certainly up for discussion if you can add or take away any of these from the list that I'll share. So 3 things. My husband would often say, Judith, always remember these 3 things and we'll have a happy marriage. The first one is ego. Men are a whole bundle of ego. A man loves to feel good about himself, and he loves when his wife makes him feel this way about himself. Women have egos too, but the ego is not our whole body as it is for the man. So ego is important. And if you ask what is ego, ego is a sense of self or self-importance. They want to know that they matter and we consider them important and special. Anybody can guess what's the second thing that's important to men? That's not a rhetorical question. It's a question for you to respond. What you say?
Sex?
Yes, you are such a brilliant screw. Sex is absolutely important to men. I don't know if Warren or others who might have gone through this process would remember that in premarital counseling, we often say in describing the differences between men and women, we say that men are about sight, smell, and touch. They are very physical. These things are very, very important to them. Women, you did not marry another woman, so don't expect him to talk all night. Dayne is using a term that I don't even sure what to use. But don't expect him to talk or labrish all night. Yeah, some men have become experts at doing this, but many times men expect a reward for being so nice and complicit. And quite often the reward is sex or something sexual. That's, I mean, take that up with God. That's how men were created. So ego and sex. Anybody knows the third thing?
Food.
Yes, it's who that. Food. So Dayne always says, honey, remember, 3 things will keep this marriage happy. Ego, food, and sex are important to a man. Once he feels that you respect him and you cherish and value him, once he's getting all the sex of his life, and once he's getting good food, whether him cook it or you cook it, trust me, women, you can get away with murder. Don't tell them that I said so. But it will serve to make the marriage a very happy place. So men are different from women. How different are women from men? Let's talk about that. So women have vaginas. We don't have penis. We are not like men. We are not men.
Hold on, Red. Men had 3 words.
Eh?
Men had 3 words. So
and women have one. Women have one.
Really?
And it is this, that everything matters. Women are very, very special. We're often described as emotional. It doesn't mean that sex or food or ego isn't important to women, as I mentioned. I wouldn't want us to leave with that. And in some women, it's more heightened than in others. But women are a more global mechanism. So many things are taking place in our minds. When a man can focus on sex, food, his ego, a woman has to focus on everything from the department store to the market to the bedroom spread. Everything is important to a woman. So that's just a diagram. So this is also another way of saying it. We have often seen this, a husband's brain, one track. A wife's brain, the man them really can't understand what is going on there. And take for a simple example. You promise women, the wives who are here, you promise your husband sex one morning and say, you know, when you come home from work, honey, we're going to have sex. Trust me, everything in the day, during the day, is focused, as this picture says, one track minded. If you should text him in the day and your text out, remember to pick up bread, he's like, I wonder if she remember about this thing that we have promised to do. For the woman, you could talk about sex in this moment, but everything else is on your mind. And that's because of how you were made. There's nothing wrong with you. This is how you have been made. And women, if it is that your husbands are finding it difficult to understand this, ask him if he wants to remain married to a woman or to a man, because he will only get this one track minded if he's married to a man. So we are essentially two different beings. And that's why it's so beautiful, because the two different beings are now coming together to make magic, to make spice. So it's important. Basically what I'm saying here, let's rummage through all that I've said. Basically what I'm saying here, it's important to recognize the differences. If you're going to be making and keeping it spicy, you have to know the differences from day one. You have to know the differences, and then you have to begin to enjoy those differences. Use them to your advantage now that you know them. And for me, it is in the enjoying those differences where the spice happens. This is where the spice happens.
Excuse me,
So,
Reverend Grant, before
yes.
I continue. We should have asked at the beginning if you wanted questions throughout your presentation or at the end.
Oh, it doesn't matter. I can take them throughout because sometimes it's very present on people's minds.
We have a raised hand from Patrick and Malicia Nelson. Do you want to take the question now?
Oh, sure.
Oh, hi, good night again. What if it is that the wife has the husband's braid and the husband has the wife's braid?
Well, that's an anomaly, but it happens. There are some men very emotional, very multi-wired, and there are some women who are very one-track minded. They are very physical, and those basic things are important. What's the important thing here is to understand your partner. And there are also some relationships where there are, more similar. So both of them one-track minded, very sexualized. And that's okay as well. You find two very emotional people, but it's important to be aware of the general differences, for they are usually more common than the anomalies. Is it that, Malicia, is it that you want to tell us something?
Yes, for me, for our relationship, I think where sex is concerned, I have a higher sex drive than my husband does.
Okay.
And I think I have many tracks apart. I have one era that has a one track, and then I have another era that has multiple tracks. So I think I have two parts to my brain, right?
What we call that in psychiatry, no.
So
excellent.
For me, my love language is physical and spending a lot of time, while he's a bit different. So sometimes that tends to be a bit difficult in terms of like spending time together, because I cherish time while he might be more into something else. And so it's harder sometimes to strike the balance where that is concerned. And yes, while I might enjoy sex more than I think he does, I don't want it to be a case where we only where he's only affectionate when he feels that we want to have sex. Because I like affection as well outside of the physical connection of sex.
Okay. All right. Excellent. So Patrick and Malicia, is it Malicia or Malicia? Malicia. Patrick and Malicia, you have set an excellent tone, and that is self-understanding, knowing what works for you, knowing who you are, what you like best. And that's excellent. I mentioned a little earlier in terms of crafting your own unique plan, because what I'm going to go on to talk about now is the fact that keeping it spicy, there is no generic list about keeping it spicy. What works for me might never work for you. What works for you might never work for me. So I like where you're at, Patrick and Malicia, in terms of knowing yourself. So it might be different from everybody else, but the important thing is that you know who you are, you know what flip to switch, what switch to flip, yes, and what ticks you, what turns you on. So that's important.
Just to say though that I do enjoy sex and I do enjoy having sex with my wife, right? It's just that sometimes I think, boy, she's a lot.
Oh,
Miss Judith, I'm a woman. I need a lot of loving.
Oh, I think you were going to say you need a lot of man. Okay.
It's why I tell you I'm a Scotch bonnet pepper though. That's why I said I was a Scotch bonnet. Because it's
oh, this laughter is absolutely therapeutic.
sometimes I think, all right. So for me, if things are not going as planned and as how I want them to go, boys, me just can't me shut down. That's just me, right? Like everything needs. I remember earlier days in our marriage when, you know, the money never so strong, certain way. I battle to make things meet and so on. I mean, I tell you, that time there was a struggle. It was a real struggle because whenever we want things to be done, and for me, whenever I can't provide as a husband, it weighs heavy on me. I don't know about other men, but it weighs heavy on me, and me just shut down. Sexually, it's not right, but it happens. I think I've been doing a bit better. You can attest to that if you so desire.
Yes, he is.
But I think, thank God, you know, we are at a better place. You know, financially and so on, and so, you know, we are able to function better. But I mean, it's a work in progress, I'll say.
Yeah.
I mean, I totally agree with him. If for men, if psychologically they're not there, so because we know that women are more emotional creatures than men. So for men, it's not necessarily emotions; it's just their psyche that, boy, these bills need to be paid, these things need to be done, and if they're not at the place where they're comfortable, their physical, you know, action down there just can't, you know.
What do you mean, Erica? You mean like?
So they're godly gifts. They're godly gifts that God gave them for their wives and their wives only. It can't necessarily function as effectively as they would want, even if it's something. And that's something that's a real thing. For men, even if it does happen, it won't necessarily be at its best because psychologically.
Yeah. He doesn't give his all. You know when his mind is not there.
Yeah.
And for me, in our marriage, when it is that you are not connected a certain way, especially when the minds are not connected, it's just in and out, physical. But and you know it as a wife. You know when your husband is not 100% committed to the task at that point in time, and it doesn't bode well for the relationship when that happens.
I don't know. I mean, and I don't know where you're going with this in terms of what you're going to talk about this, but I'm just waiting. So, for example, why are you looking at me like that? Why are you looking at me like that? You know, in terms of what would I say? No? So, for example, like if I say, even if I'm overwhelmed, say if I'm overwhelmed emotionally and you hug me, oh gosh, I just start melting because I feel safe. Good.
That's exactly who I am.
It doesn't matter how many types of stress I'm going through or whatever I'm feeling. As long as
my safe zone, yes.
I'm good, right? And I'm ready. But like I'll be stressed and I'll say, oh, my head is hurting me, I'm going upstairs. My head is really, really hurting me for true. And I'm saying I'm going upstairs and I expect him to come upstairs, but he says, oh, but you say your head was hurting you. So what if my head
That's why you must come.
that's a critical point you made earlier, though, where it can be misunderstood because how Melissa deals with issue is different from how I process it. And so in the earlier days, in my head, it's like she have a business say this no pay yet or that no pay yet, you know, and all that. And so for me, I'm like, oh, you want sex now and we are out there.
This is where you need to. I keep nudging it to say this is where you need to speak, because the thing is, men are wired as providers from way back when. Yeah. Yes, you are wired as a provider, so you want to ensure that ends are being met and you're able to take care of your family. But what you are expressing, Patrick, is one side of what some men experience. Some men actually need, this is the only thing that helps them to go through all this mess, the sex. So whereas in you're expressing that it's so difficult to function, this is one response we get from some men. But from other men like my husband, this is what he needs to function because he can't manage the stress no other way. And you hear him talk about it in terms of, you know, if we're not gelling as we would normally, or we're fussing about, or we're getting too much friction, he would say, honey, too much friction in the house, and you know already how to relieve the friction. So for him, sex is a cure-all. I remember very early in our marriage, Dayne had a severe fever. And I mean, like, he was in ego, everything. We couldn't understand why he must have had a stomach bug or something. But this man looks like he was undying to me. And, you know, young wife, you want to ensure that your husband is taken care of medically. You know what the man asked for? Sex. Yeah. And the state he was in, he was looking so fragile. Me say, but I mean, some parts were not looking fragile at all. But, you know, and then poor young wife like myself, I had to call a nurse lady and I said, listen, this is what he's asking for. Is it safe to do? Yeah. And she said, absolutely, it's safe. You do it and then take him to the doctor. But trust me, for some, what you're expressing is a difference, the two sides of a coin.
I would share though, just like I didn't get the presenter's name, the female, but I agree with her. For me, when we are experiencing difficulty in terms of financial or whatever else, Patrick is my safe zone, and I tell him that. And so it's not all about sex, but it's about really feeling him at that moment. And so when he is experiencing his difficulty and he pulls away from me, I am internalizing, okay, I am not your safe zone. So what's up? You understand? And that is where you in your mind, you start wondering, if I am not your safe zone and you're not coming to me to rest in my bosoms, then just to relieve your stress, then who is it that you are finding as your stress reliever? That's what will now become the thought in my mind.
Or what?
You know?
Who are what?
Yeah.
Who are what? You know?
So that's the ego part of the man, always wanting to feel in control. And believe it or not, remember the women are more emotional. We are not too perturbed in terms of how my husband sees me if I appear weak, when men might be very concerned. You're his queen, you're his bride. He wants to always present an image that he's in control. And many times we already know men that you might not be very well in control, and it's okay for us, but this is how you have been wired, and we have to deal with you on that basis, on that level. So yeah, I'm going to move on and share the other things. But thank you so much for sharing, Patrick and Melissa, for really becoming vulnerable in this space to share your own personal experience, and also Erica and Warren.
Rev, before we move on, I know Patrick Francis has had his hand up for a while.
Oh, yes. Hi, Patrick. Yes, I'll take him now. Hi, Patrick.
Yes, Revs. So I'm Patrick, but unlike the other Patrick, I did say I'm the 7 days a week person, but I would say I'm the 21 days a week person. So I would like, maybe 3 times a day, but I'll settle for 2 days or 3 days a week.
Okay.
Right. So I'm gonna be practical. Um, a busy life, wife is busy, wife at work, um, husband have school, husband have work, husband have kids, wife has kids, everything is just in always in the way. And then when we try to, do a thing, or there comes the kids, because they know when we're trying to cuddle or whatever, and they just know when to put themselves,
Mm-hmm.
Is it practical to, as I said, deliberately make time for each other, like say every Thursday, um or every other day or whatever. Yes, so I would like to know, is it selfish to want for it to be practical, to set dates?
Okay. So
Really?
what I'm
And
trying to
the
get
fact that
at
is,
is it that you're asking about that versus spontaneity, like you want it to be spontaneous
right.
versus?
So, because sometimes
Okay.
you pops up and you do some things, and it comes off being spontaneous, romantic.
Mm-hmm.
But then, is it practical all the time? Because sometimes you're just so busy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then sometimes, the wife might be, busy with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then, when you're ready, she's just tired.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but then, what I always tell my wife is that, you have Patrick, you have Terry, and then you have the marriage. You have to take care of the marriage or the union.
Yeah.
So if we let everything bombard us or get in the way, I mean, after a while, even the kids, they will grow up and they'll go on and will sit and look at each other. So we're not really,
Mm-hmm.
starting out the union part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So my thing, go back to my question, the practical part. Is it practical to say every Friday at 10 and we must be there ready and waiting? Yeah, stuff like that. You can go ahead and
Okay.
talk.
I got you. I got you. I'm going to ask Mutale to consider taking this question. Why? Because Mutale has been married, for 13 years?
15.
Sorry, oops. 15 years, but also has 3 children. Dayne and I have been married for 10 years. We have no children. So in a sense, we still puppy love, in that we have not learned the realities and the vicissitudes of maneuvering, yes, these little human beings, and how they demand your time. We often have said to friends who have children that, oh, when the children come, we're not paying them any mind, it's just us. And they just laugh at us because they know better. So I want to ask her to talk about that aspect of it. But if I can just quickly say, though, Patrick, that I think it is particularly because we have so little time together that we must plan time. And not to say that I'm saying this, and I'm sure Dayne will disagree, not to say that this planned time has to be sexual intercourse or has to be sexual, but it just needs to be time for you to be together. Dayne and I would often refer to it as, we need some us time. So, and even though we don't have any children, but so many things can clamor your life, and you just realize that you're screaming out for some us time, some together time. And it doesn't have to be a particular day of the week, it could be a time of the day. So we love early mornings, and that's our time of the day. Well, Dayne loves late nights, they love any time. But we can wake early in the morning. So you have to, if children are in the mix, from my vantage point, Mark, I say I don't have any children of my own, So I really don't, I'm delving in waters that we don't really experience. But I would say that plan a time when the children would not be in your space. Because you see, when you cultivate that romance in your relationship, it helps your children to, it helps how you relate with the children. It helps, it helps them to see their parents in love. So I think that it's not just for you. Don't think about it as a selfish thing, but we're doing this for our entire family because it is important that the farmer tends the garden if the family want food to eat. So I'm going to ask, I'm going to ask Mutale to talk about how you deal with the children and time with your husband for sex and other kinds of intimacy.
Well, thank you, Judith, and thank you, Patrick, for that question. You know, having children is such a joy and a blessing that sometimes you feel like, oh, maybe we should have waited a little bit longer to have these kids. but I promise you, even if you plan to have time on Fridays or every Monday or every Saturday, the kids will always be there. There's no time that I do not have my kids around. I'll go to the bathroom and somebody would want to talk to me about something that's very important. Right now, mommy, I want to say this. Can you give me a moment? No, it can't wait. Let's talk about this. So I'm in the bathroom. She's at the door. We're talking. So there's always, they are always going to be there. They are always going to be in your face. But as Judith said earlier, being intimate or being with your friend, your husband, your spouse, it's not always about sex. So you could have time. You both are working probably. She comes home and she has to manage 1 or 2, 3 things before you can get that time together. And you don't know what happened in the day with her. She doesn't know what happened in the day with you. So you are both at different levels in this very day that you want to be together. So managing time becomes quite a complex issue. What happens is, for me and my husband usually, is he comes home and the kids know that when it's 8 p.m., whatever is going on, I have to be with my husband for some time. Yeah. So yeah. So they'll be daddy, mommy. I'm like, and I tell them, no, time out. I need to be with my husband. He's your daddy. Talk to him after I've had a time with him. So we take time. He comes home and we sit and talk for a while. Maybe just what happened today. Are you okay? Well, sometimes he comes back. I can see that he's really had a rough day. I can see it before, just at the door. I know something went wrong today. So I say to the kids, put on the TV, do whatever. I have to talk to daddy now. So we sit and we talk, and he offloads, I offload. We have sex, maybe, or not. But we have spoken. We've had that time to vent, to let it out. And we only have each other. We don't have anybody else. It's him and I. So if something is wrong, it's me. And also, sometimes we just want to sit and cuddle. So we sit in bed, we cuddle, and we talk. In that moment, the kids can come and it's fine. So they can come, talk to us, go back, whatever. But sometimes we just sit and cuddle just to be with each other. You know, the thing is, when you are in courtship, when you're dating, there's always that desire for him to hold my hand, for her to hold my hand. There's always that desire for him to say, I love you, for him to say, I see you, you look beautiful. That desire still carries on in marriage. But unfortunately, sometimes as soon as we get married, we arrive and all these nice gestures just stop at the door. Then you see your husband appreciating this woman. Oh, you look beautiful today, your hair. I went to the salon yesterday, you didn't notice my hair, you can notice her hair. That kind of a thing. So it's very important for us as couples. If you are going to keep it spicy, think of it as a date. Like, you don't really need to go out and eat at a restaurant. At home, you can date each other. If you can manage to go out and eat out and go on vacations, fine. But even at home, make it work. It can work. And oftentimes, you know what happens is, I'm married to a pastor, by the way. So oftentimes what happens is, once something has gone wrong in a relationship, before it goes wrong, by the way, your partner, your spouse will be telling you, I wish we could do this differently. I wish we can do this way. And because he's my husband, I mean, he's a pastor, where is he going? Even if I don't do it, he's not going anywhere. But once he steps out, that's when you realize he was so serious about this, or she was actually very serious about this issue. I should have taken it seriously. It doesn't have to come to a place where one of us goes out for us to realize the importance of what this other person is seeking from me. So creating time with children, with the spouse is very important, Patrick. But also sometimes help out with the children, help with the homework, help whatever, be with the kids for a while, so that it's not just your wife's responsibility. And be with the children, and then she can have that time to relax and calm down and be able to give you that us time that you're looking for. I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you so much.
If you'll allow me, I was sharing this with a friend of mine just, I think, about a week ago. You know, we were talking about something that was happening with her marriage. And I was sharing with her that, you know, the truth is that you have to be very intentional about your marriage, just as very intentional about, and I was even saying it to her as an expert or anything like that, because I have my own drama. It's just, you have to just be so intentional. It's almost like you have to get up and fight for this every day kind of attitude. You know, and I was saying to her that sometimes you have to just simply invite him on a date, but the date is really just outside. Like for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, just outside your house. But if you text it to him, and then you probably say, did you send you a message? Like, men will find that very intriguing. Like, oh, you sent me a message, you know, inviting me. And he doesn't even know where in the year. He just knows that you said meet him right wherever. But he doesn't even know what your intentions are. He said, can just be just sitting in the car. There's no special anything. If you have, you know, some kind of juice or chips that you like, or something, you can bring it with you, but just to be by yourself, because at the end of the day, your children are important. My 2 children, Lord, they've been coming down that step for the last half an hour. And if they come down here right now, everything is over. And we have to be saying, guys, remember mommy and daddy doing something, right? But at the end of it, they're so important and we love them. But I have to remember, there's so many times Warren has to say to me, Erica, it's me. I was here first. I'm a husband, you know, and I can't choose my children over my husband. And I mean, I wouldn't want it to come to a point where I have to choose. That's not what God would want. But I can't, in the moments of, you know, emotions, choose my children or make my husband feel like, oh, well, the children are more important than me. Or, you know, I have to make an effort to make sure that I make his breakfast, do anything that I have to make him feel special. So going on simple 15-minute dates outside your house, even if it's just to stand outside after the kids are asleep, just stand in the cool air of the night, like that helps. That's 1. 2, there's something that we do when we're very tense, you know, like when we're having an argument or we're trying to share something with the other person that can probably hurt the person's feelings, or, you know, if we're talking about not being able to have sex when we want, or not feeling pleased, whatever it is. One of the things that anything unpleasant, but because we're talking about spice now, I'm keeping it spicy. Right. Okay, I'm spicy Erica tonight. Okay. Right. One of the things that we do is, like, we always tell people, find a wall in your house. So like we have a lot of wall, column or whatever, and I'll just say, come here, or he'll call me, and we'll just stand right at that one wall, one post, one column, and like hug each other from behind. So if I'm going to say something to him that I think may hurt his feelings, I hug him from behind and he doesn't move, he doesn't get angry, doesn't anything at all. He just listens to what I'm saying. But I'm hugging him. So even if he feels a particular way, he can't move, and I'm still connected and I'm still hugging him, and he just can't help but just turn and hug the person and talk about it, you know. But it's almost like it creates this atmosphere where this is a safe zone. You don't have to get all in your feelings. Just hear what I have to say. It doesn't mean I don't love you anymore. It doesn't mean anything. I just want to share what is on my heart right now, and I want to receive it in the best way. And we just hug, right? And you talk about it. And the other thing that we do now is he said to me the other day, we're talking about, you know, how is it that sometimes, like, at the end of the night, we end up don't do anything. And he was saying, well, when he comes home, one, as soon as he comes to that gate and he sees me after a day with those children, he feels so unpleasant. He's saying, where do I get that greeting? I know you've been home with them all and it's frustrating, but I get the hi. And I'm just opening the gate and I'm just letting him, because I'm so frustrated with the children after having them for an entire day that I don't even recognize that for him, it is important that when he comes home, I'm giving him a hug. I'm saying, hi, how was the day? In the best way I can say it, you know, final perkiness there. And that causes him to feel a particular way. And so the evening just moves on and on. He helps with the children and everybody's just in a bad mood. And then the night just goes. So there's no spice. 11 o'clock at night when the children gone to sleep. So instead now I try when he comes home, you know, to find a pleasant, some kind of pleasantness and greet him with. And I tell him that what I want him to do for me is when he comes home and he sees me looking terrible, and I mean looking terrible now, like the worst. Good. And the children have made me so frustrated. Like, I want him to hug me. Just hug me. Don't ask me anything. Don't nothing. Give me a hug. And when he gives me a hug, then I'll melt and there'll be spice. You know?
I can relate. I can relate. I can relate. I can relate, definitely.
Yes, yes. So it's really about knowing each other and what helps and what doesn't help the other. Thank you so much for sharing for each of you. You know, when I began to do this activity in terms of, you know, how do you spice up your marriage? I went to the internet and I realized what I found were a lot of lists. 15 ways to spice up your marriage today. 8 ways to turn up the heat in the bedroom tonight. Erica. 19 ways to intimacy spice up your marriage. 50 ways to spice up your marriage without 50 shades of gray. And I realized that what you'll find is a bunch of lists and lists and lists. And one of the issues with the list is that, one, I don't know if you have ever looked at any of them, but I know this is certainly up by Mutale Street, that a lot of the lists target the women. So they'll talk about, oh, fix up your hair and your makeup before the husband comes in. They target the women. Buy a nice lingerie. Almost as if women, we don't need to see the man nicely adorned, clean, nice cologne. Like, those things aren't important for us. So most of these lists are not very helpful because they keep targeting the women. For me, not only do they target the women, but if you look at most of these lists, they are very contextual, very North American in context, where we can relate to some of these things. Go to this restaurant. So I liked the way Erica described the date, the 15-minute date outside. Never gonna try that one, Erica. But there are none of these lists that tell you, say, go around a banana bush, or to go down a riverside and banana tree, Mutale. So there are none of these lists that will tell you those things that can really spice up the Jamaican marriage, or the things that you love to do in your childhood, to talk about them. So I found that these lists can end up being not helpful. And the truth is, after you practice these lists over and over, they also become mundane, routine, and boring. So you need to find a way how you can craft a spice. I liked the way you begin, Erica. You craft a spice that is unique for you. If you're cinnamon, then your list needs to be full of cinnamon. If you're pepper, your list needs to be very peppery, so that whatever you come up with, it's a list for Patrick and Terry, or Patrick and Melissa, or Erica and Warren. So the list needs to be contextual if it's going to be, and unique if it's going to be spicy. And so this is where we would say, we turn up the things. Giving you the caution again, friends, that if it's too hot in here, you may now take your departure, say your farewells, and we will see you next week. But you are more than welcome to stay, regardless of who you are. We want to talk about the hardcore stuff. We want to talk about what is really important if we are going to be keeping it spicy, making it and keeping it spicy. And as we talk about these different aspects, we want to talk about the value of each, that's one. And we also want to talk about the challenges to each of them. And I want to begin on the note that maybe most of us have been on since we see this, not even since the beginning of the webinar, you know, since we saw the message about the webinar and saw the topic. And we read the topic that said, keeping it spicy. Some things have been on our minds, and rightly so. We want to talk about the matter of sex and intimacy in this section. And as I said before, whatever we say is really not to offend anyone, but we say it in good measure that our relationships, present and future, will be helped. So we're talking about sex and intimacy. Anybody can read what that says?
No.
You're my favorite thing to do. Well, Patrick, you should read that one.
You do me.
No, but I mean, the person kneeling is also doing something. So
it's like a bicycle to me. I don't.
Anything you want to call it, Erica. But we want to talk about sex and intimacy. Sex is not everything. The relationship is not all about sex and intimacy, but sex and intimacy are very important aspects of the relationship if you are married. And we want to talk about that. I want to give you 2 words and then share a unique challenge I had, and then invite Mutale to talk about how that challenge, how her context assisted me and how it can assist many others. All right, so the 2 words I want to share as we talk about sex and intimacy are 1, and we've said it in some ways tonight. 1, attentiveness. Being attentive. Always, at every time and every point. And that has to do with what Erica said about you come home and I'm exhausted because I've dealt with this. Is this the right time to be demanding? Sometimes what you're offering might be the solution to what the person is faced with, but is it always? So be attentive to your partner, and not just before, but we're talking about attentiveness before sex, during sex, and after sex. That's important. Now, I'm going to talk about the Jamaican dilemma, because in our context, some of us have grown up in contexts where you mustn't talk too publicly about the act of sex, whether you're married or not. And what has happened is that those who are not married have taken over this talk about sex, and what we hear is much talk about sex in the songs, the dancehall culture, and so on. And Christian people, Christian marriages are not fully talking about all that relates to their lives in terms of sex. So we're talking about that one, being attentive. So some people think about turning off the lights when it's time for sex because they feel more comfortable. Why do you feel more comfortable in the dark when it is time for sex? Some people, where is Patrick, Francis? Because some people believe that sex must only take place at night. Or these Christian women who believe that you get a nice, holy, sanctified nightgown and you put on that when it's time for sex, nothing more,
Oh, glory.
Don't want to be too worldly. And night nurse is on a mission. Night nurse is on a mission.
Yes, yes, exactly. Nobody's bending and kneeling to pray anymore, Erica. So, so we're afraid to talk about sex. We're afraid to talk about our desires or sexual desires. And in some cases, sex is about the pleasure of the man. And the woman, you know, you're just satisfied with what you get because this is the Lord's desire that you submit yourselves unto your husbands. Hallelujah, somebody.
What a lie.
And you'll find that sex can become draining in the marriage and in the relationship. So we're talking about attentiveness. Yeah. And we're talking also about creativity. So being attentive and being very, very creative when it comes to your sex life and intimacy. So here is the perceived challenge in the Jamaican Christian context. The perceived challenge is that Christian marriages, or everybody accepts that Christian marriages must survive and must do well. However, some people believe that Christian marriages should not be too sexualized. Thank you, Dayne. Not too sexualized, but we must be holy and sacred. And if you should end up using any of the words or the styles of the world, you are considered as vulgar because this is not becoming of a Christian marriage. I've had, maybe Dayne has had as well, but people, Christian people, ask me if this position, this sexual position is allowed, if it is okay before God, if it is godly. And they have all of these kinds of questions because there is a thinking that Christian marriages, though sex must happen, you mustn't be too sexualized. I wonder if anybody's in their heart saying amen. Because the truth is, every single sexual desire that you are feeling or you have felt, yes, you have felt, from A to B, from very mild to very hot, they're not just happening upon you, you know. They have been given by you, to you, by God. It means that God has created you with the capacity for all these hallelujah feelings. That you, that you have, and it's okay to revel in them and to enjoy them, to be creative and be crazy about them. It's okay. So here was my dilemma, and I did receive permission from my husband to share this. So I'm not just sharing without his permission. But we have been married for 10 years, and I enjoyed the sex. Sex was great. Sex was good. Sex was great. But in the first 7 years of our marriage, wait for it, the first 7 years of our marriage, I had never had what we call a penile orgasm. Never had a penile orgasm. And it's okay because 30% of women will never experience a penile orgasm. So I enjoyed sex, but you know, you always wonder, so what's the big craze about? And in the year 2017, I met Mutale, which is why I had to bring Mutale on this this webinar. And no,
I know what he said.
Fix up your mind, people. That's not what I'm saying. But I began to talk with. We met in just what, 3 weeks, Mutale? It was a 3-week program. We were both in Geneva. It was both our first time to Switzerland. We were the only 2 Black people in the program, and we instantaneously took a liking and talking to each other. And I think we were the only married people in the lot, Mutale.
Yeah.
Yes. So we had common things to talk about, including missing our spouses. And it is in talking to Mutale that I realized that though I am clergy here and might not have shared this at that time with anyone, thinking that it was normal and I never needed to share it, we began opening up and sharing. And Mutale began to open up and share the preparation tradition of the brides or the brides to be in her context. And she will tell you about it, but let me tell you what I realized instantly. I realized instantly that as we prepare, or as I was preparing people for marriage in my own Jamaican context, that I wasn't doing as half as much as they needed to be prepared for this very beautiful experience. Yes, sex experience. But I want to say beautiful experience in general, because Mutale will tell you that the practice is not just about sex, but sex is a very important and a large part of the preparation. And so what I found is that as a clergy, as a congregational pastor, I was preparing my people. Warren and Erica, you'll remember the 12 points. There are 12 points that we believe we should prepare every married couple for, or pre-married couple, whatever. We should prepare every person getting married for, and they go from dealing with the in-laws to finance to health to a whole heap of something. And sex and birth control are just one aspect of that. And I'm not preempting what Mutale will say, but what you will hear is an entire preparation just for sex, because they deemed it as a very important and vital aspect of the preparation of marriage. Yes. I began by talking about my difficulty in having a penile orgasm. Thank you, Dayne. So I'll continue in saying that, and then I will let Mutale speak. Needless to say that after my encounter with Mutale, and I won't tell you what we did, but after remember I'm a Christian, after my encounter with Mutale, friends, being vulnerable in that space, sharing together in that context, when I came back to Jamaica in 2017, July to be exact, I had my very first penile orgasm. And I thought that, oh, it must have been because I missed Dayne so much, but then it happened again, and it happened again, and it just has not stopped happening. I told you it's hardcore stuff we're talking about. So I looked at myself and I said, I could have been married for 25 years, as many people have been, and not enjoy the measure of sex that I was created to enjoy, simply because we shun particular aspects of who God has created us to be. And I say shun because we Christian people are afraid of dealing with and talking about. Check yourself, because by me talking about it, you might be feeling a little uncomfortable. And we have to ask ourselves, why is that so? Mutale will share from her context, but needless to say that when I came back to Jamaica, no, let me not say that. Mutale, I'll have you share, and then I'll wrap up this part about the Jamaican Christian cultural experience. Yes, Mutale.
Okay. Thank you so much, Judith. I'm excited to be on this forum, and thank you for inviting me. Erica and Warren, thank you for accepting the invitation from Judith. So, well, let me talk about the Zambian context. I am Zambian, and we have about 73 ethnic groups, tribes as you would call them. I would prefer ethnic groups. And one of the biggest, largest tribes or ethnic groups is the Bemba people, of which I am a part. And with this ethnic group, we have a cultural tradition, an initiation rite for women, brides. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, okie dokie, okie dokie, okay. So we've got this initiation rite that we have for brides to be. So what happens is that when a bride is about to be married, her mother, and those who may not have their mothers around, their aunt, would look for somebody in the community that has a well-standing marriage, and then they would ask that person to sit down with their daughter and to speak to their daughter about marriage. And this initiation rite is called imbusa. Now, if I have to go into detail about imbusa, it's a whole big thing, because imbusa would be, I'm trying to find an equivalent word in English, but I can't. But it's sort of like, in my cultural sense, I would say it's like a womb, uterus even. Yeah, uterus even. So yeah, so what happens is this, that older women who are married come together and they sit down with this young bride and they teach her everything that, well, the pastor probably would teach in their premarital teachings. So there's finances, budgets, how to deal with in-laws, the whole 9 yards. But then there's the biggest aspect to this, which is the sexual aspect. And I'll tell you why a woman is usually the one that is taught and not a man. Because for us as Bemba people in Zambia, a woman is the head of the house. She is the head of the home. So she needs to know how to handle her marriage, how to deal with everything in the home. So what happens is this: when I say we talk about the teaching involves the whole aspect about sex, I literally mean a whole aspect about sex. Because as a bride, when you come, you're getting married, it is assumed you are a virgin, so you know nothing about sex. Okay? So these older married women will sit down with you and they'll tell you what is an erection. Sorry, I'm married to a pastor, I'm a pastor's wife, but I'm going to be as raw as I can be, because this is how I am framed together. I mean, this is how I speak. So I'm going to be as raw as I can be. I will not spiritualize anything. I'm spiritual, but I won't spiritualize anything. So here, so these women will sit down with you and they'll tell you what an erection is. What does it look like when a man is erect? It starts from there. And believe you, it's exciting to be in that space, except if you are the new bride, because you are a bit not sure what's going on. So these women, believe you me, they would make up a penis. Yeah, and then they'll show you that this is how it looks like before it's erect, and when it's erected, this is how it looks like. And so you should be comfortable with that. Now, I'm going to tell you a story just before I go into any details. When my husband and I were about to be married, some of the older men sat with him briefly, and this one man particularly said to him, so Chama, that's his name, if, God forbid, your Mutale was found in an accident, she died in an accident, and you could not recognize anything, the only recognizable thing you could find was her vagina, would you be able to recognize that that's my wife's vagina? Would you be able to recognize this is Mutale's vagina? So yeah, so it got to him. But then later on, we easily understood, because guess what? We have this thing that we do as married couples among my people, and most Zambians actually. We shave each other's pubic hairs. And that is the most romantic thing. You should try it if you haven't. So what happens is that on the wedding night, well, before the wedding, 2 weeks before the wedding, this young bride would be told, please do not shave yourself for the next 2 weeks, just be as you are. And then when you, on your wedding night, you will shave your husband and your husband will shave you. And let me tell you, these women will teach you how to shave a man. So, yeah. You can do all the no hairs if you want. You can go the old school, use razors, whatever, but be able to shave each other. And that is like the most intimate thing that can happen between a couple. And when I say shaving, I do not mean that in the next 5 minutes, let's shave and finish and go away. No, it is a process. It is exploration. It is the moment you get to see, oh, so that is how a clitoris looks like. I didn't realize you had a dark spot over there. Stuff like that. So you get to know the roadmap to this exciting, womanly, beautiful vagina and the penis. Yeah, so this is how it happens. So you shave a little bit, and because as a woman, I'm the one who's been taught how to shave. So I shave him, and by my touch, obviously, he's gonna be erected. And in that moment, you can stop and have sex, okay? And after you have had sex, you can leave him with a table cut and he can go about his business in the day or in the week. You can do the shaving for the rest of the week. You don't have to rush, shave, finish and go. No, it's an exploration. It's a whole idea of you getting to know your partner, your spouse better than you thought you knew him. And so the process takes much longer. You talk about it. You listen to all that he has to say. And besides that, there is another thing that is taught. You know, whining? Well, yeah, it's a Jamaican term. What am I asking? Yeah, you whine. You whine. So we Zambians, we teach young brides to whine. But not only whine as you are standing up, but whining on bed, on the bed. So we do the whining, and that is the very, very beautiful thing you could ever see. Even if I say so myself. Yeah, so we teach whining. So it doesn't matter how rigid you think you are. When you get to sit down with these Zambian women, you will become as flexible as anything. So they'll teach you how to whine, because whining is very, very important. They teach you how to whine, and there is a whining where you just entice your husband. Oftentimes, I just get up and whine for my husband. We laugh about it. We talk about it. And that's very special. You sit, whine for your husband, and then there's a whining on the bed, because we don't believe that as you make love, you just lay down there like a log. That's the term that most Zambian men would use. She just lays down like a log. No, you've got to make some sensual movement. So it's very, very important that you've got your pelvis whining and doing crazy stuff that makes your husband speak in tongues. I'm Pentecostal, by the way.
Hallelujah. Amen. Kaunda. Feel it.
Yeah, I'm Pentecostal, so I'm gonna say it as I feel it. So we teach whining. How deep do you want me to go? There's a whole lot of juicy stuff that is on my mind, and I'm trying to think of this whole Christian community that is going to think of this Zambian lady as crazy. How deep should I go?
Deep as the Lord bids your sister.
Amen, sister.
The Lord bids you.
Amen, Sister Melissa. I'm gonna do that. So yeah. So we do the whining, we do the shaving.
Hold on. I think we're getting requests to organize some study tours to Zambia.
Yeah, so
great. You will never be the same again, brothers and sisters.
Oh no. That's the person.
Yeah, so what did I say? So yeah, we do we teach the whining, not just whining on the bed to music, but on the bed. And we do the shaving. And then we've got the traditional lingerie. We wear these waist beads, the beads around the waist. And those are very attractive and sensual. But I'll tell you what, this has been a traditional thing among Zambians. But when we had missionaries come into Zambia, then they came and prayed these things out of our marriages. It's demonic. You can't do this. But our culture is quite resistant. So we still do wear beads, waist beads. And those are quite, it's a whole lot of, I wish, you know, I can write a book about this whole thing. So I'm just going to speak a chunks, bits and pieces on everything. And then, should I say this? Are you ready for it?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. So we've got what we call labia elongation.
Oh, yes.
Labia elongation. So young women, member women, and most Zambian women now elongate their labias. Everybody knows what labias is, right?
Yeah, labia.
Those inner lips, those lips in the vagina. So the inner ones, we elongate them to a certain extent, and that is a very attractive thing for most men. I can see nodding of heads, yeah. it is a very sensual, beautiful thing. So we have this elongation of labia, which is part of the whole preparation of a bride. My contention has been with this rite that I love so much. I've been doing research on this for as long as I can imagine and remember. My contention has been that if I'm going to, by the way, this rite would take, previously, it would take about 6 months to prepare a bride for a man. And nowadays, because people work and I can't afford 6 months out of work just to prepare for marriage, we take about 2 weeks to 3 months, depends. I did 2 weeks for my marriage. So if I'm going to take 6 months, 3 months, 1 month, 2 weeks to be prepared to go and blow my husband's mind when I give him that sex, I think I would like for him to prepare as well, to come and blow me away. So while this rite is one-sided, I know the logic of our ancestors was that a woman, as the head of the home, gets this idea, then she goes and teaches her husband to do it as well. But I wish that there could be common ground where a man also gets prepared and the woman gets prepared, so that when we can, because believe you me, I was prepared for this, and then when I went to my husband, he'll be like, oh, where did you learn how to do that? And then I'll do this thing and he's like, where did you learn? I sat with those wonderful women and they told me to do this, you should know. But yeah, so I wish that there was this equality in terms of the man being prepared and the man being prepared, so that when we come together, we are on the same page, we have the same understanding, and we do the thing together. And this is one thing that I was going to say. Sex is not just about penetration. It is more of an exploration of a process. And it is the most divine, strongest connection between a husband and a wife. It's not only physical, I would say it's spiritual. We call sex is sacred. Where I come from, it's sacred. It's spiritual. And in fact, I put it to you, ladies and gentlemen, that to have sex without an orgasm is a sin.
Amen.
It is a sin. Because God created these, knitted these feelings together for us in our bodies, that we could probably come to the closest that we can come to the divine. So to have sex, men and women on this forum, to have sex and not give your friend an orgasm is a sin. It's sinful. We should be able to come out feeling like, wow, that was great. Can we do this again? Sometimes when you come out of this experience, you've just had sex and you feel like you've given so much of yourself and your friend just received. You are frustrated. You begin to see the things that you never noticed on him before. I didn't know he had such a big nose. Like, you get irritated and frustrated. So every single time you see him, you're like, why am I wasting my life? So here is what I was going to put together for us. I was going to put a presentation like Judith did. I was going to show you some photos, and then I just didn't get the time to do that. But when you sit with young women, young brides, you prepare them for what this is an institution that they've never been in before. Like, they've never been married before. So it's like you walk with them. I know that some people have sex before they have been married, but I promise you, the experience of having gone through these women that teach you this, and it's not just one woman, it's a group of women. So it's sort of like a refresher course. As a married woman, and not just a married woman, as a pastor's wife, I automatically qualify to teach someone this tradition. And so what happens is this, that when we go together as those who are married women, it's like a refresher course for us, because we were taught, we went and we experienced it, and now we are coming back to give feedback to each other. And then we learn more from others, because in this space we are talking about, I tried this, you should try this and see how it happens. I did this and it blew both of us away. You should try it. So it's like a fresher course, and you every now and again you are in this space where you are keeping on relearning. Therefore, you're going back to keep it spicy in your own marriage. You keep relearning, and learning is never. How long am I supposed to speak, Judith? I think I'll end here, but if you've got questions, I'll gladly take them. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. I want to testify, sister. Thank you so much for sharing, Mutale. I remember sharing with Mutale 3 years ago, and Mutale shared with me a video. Obviously, this is a very sacred context, so it's certainly not something we would post or share. But let me tell you what struck me. Any pointers on the art of fingering? All right, we soon come to it. What struck me from that was that the woman teaching the whining in this video looked like she was maybe near 70 years old, Mutale.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something, Mutale, you might not be aware of the Jamaican context, but no passa, nothing could outdo this woman. This woman was kneeling as if she was on the penis, Mutale, like she had something between her leg, like she was on the penis. And she was doing a whine. Nothing moved but her waistline and her buttocks.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something, I was like, huh? Is this for real? And that caught me, and I realized something, that I was coming from a very sexualized culture, and I did not know as a Christian woman, a Christian married woman, how to whine. I didn't know how to whine. I could have do one little something where when me move my waist, my foot, and everywhere else move. And well, I used to dance for Dayne, but I was always shy about it because I never felt I was doing anything sensible. And what Mutale just said to me, I didn't even ask Mutale's permission to say this.
It's okay.
Okay, but Mutale said to me, when I spoke about never having a penile orgasm, she said to me, just you're whining with the penis inside of you.
And I couldn't fathom. I know about going up and down, but I couldn't fathom really whining with the penis inside of me. So she said, whine as if, move as if you want the penis that is on the inside to touch your clitoris that's on the outside. And that is what did it for me. And for the rest of the 3 weeks, we were there. I mean, we were going to classes in the day, but in the night, we turned on our music and we did our whining tutorial. When I got home, this Christian girl, who is a clergy, became a whining machine. And that was what did it for me instantly. And I just remembered what she said. And I realized that, okay, yes, it's okay that 30% of women who will never experience this. But what if I am a part of that 30% and I don't really belong there? And I began to focus on, you know, coming into myself, exploring my sexual being as a woman. You can testify, you know, Dayne. And the truth is, I used that opportunity to assess some things. We did the survey up top, the examination process, the reality check. And I realized that I'm living in a context that embraces something like this. Christians don't embrace it, but I wanted to learn more. And I started to watch how the people move in dance hall. And if you have not watched it, I'm giving you permission that you can take a look. I mean, it's educational purposes. And look at how they move. Every single dance that they do, well, the man want them now do a sexual dance, but every single dance done by the women is a sexual move to enhance the sexual act. You watch them. One drop. Hot walk. Mutale research these when you get. Every single dance, go old school and go butterfly. You try that dance while you're having sex and see if it not blow your mind. Every single dance, dancehall dance, is a sexual move. And if you were to practice them in sex, it would enhance your sexual experience. And so I decided, I'm living and working in Port Antonio, that I wanted to learn more. But how was I going to learn more as a clergy? How was I going to find a space where I could learn more? And if anybody's interested in learning more, I have the right place I can send you. But I decided to enroll in a dance class. And I went to and this was a dance hall. We need, this was a dance hall dance class, because I knew at that point what I wanted. I knew how I felt, and I knew I didn't want to experience that with anybody else but Dayne, because I was like on cloud 9. And I decided I needed a safe space because people would not understand, and maybe it would impact and affect my ministry negatively if people were to see me in my own hometown going to places where they would learn these dances. And so I decided to enroll in a professional dance hall class. And let me tell you what that did for me, because it took me a step further than my experience with Mutale. What that did for me was give me a brand new appreciation for my body. And that's a very important part of keeping it spicy. So many women hide themselves, and men too, hide themselves. They're afraid of being expressive and appreciative of who they are. Everything you have now, look at yourself, right? What you have before you, that's what God has given you. Look at it and claim that it is beautiful, it is comely, it is wonderful, it is sexy. And I went into a space where There were professional women, there were women from uptown, women from downtown, women who were much older than I was, women who were much younger than I was. And we were just there. When you went, it was for an hour on a Saturday morning, and when you went, it was just time for dance. They did a dance workout before, and then you just dance. Nobody asked you what your name is. Nobody asked where you come from, where you work. It was just a time to dance. And then what would happen in these sessions is that you would always have to partner up. So you learn a routine, and then you partnered up with another woman. Oh, yes.
Can I say something, Judith?
Yes, Mutale.
Okay. I see a question here. Is there any forbidden positions? And I've just realized that I didn't also mention that in these sittings that the brides tend to have in Zambia, they teach you all positions.
Yeah.
I was married for about 7 years, I think. And then my husband traveled to study abroad. And then I stayed with this young Zambian girl. And then she mentioned Kama Sutra. I don't know if you know what that is. I didn't know what that was. So she says Kama Sutra, and I'm thinking, what is Kama Sutra? And then she gets a shock of her life. You're a married woman, you don't know what Kama Sutra is? And I was like, no. And then she tells me what it is. And then I said to myself, why do you want to go to Kama Sutra when we have our very own Zambian Kama Sutra? I mean, you sit in this space, they'll teach you all the positions that you've never thought of, these women. When you see a Zambian woman, we are a very conservative species of people. We look really very conservative. So it's when you get personal, like when you get to know somebody that you open up, like I opened up with Judith and I was able to facilitate whatever this became, that you begin to realize that, oh, okay, that was strange. I think Judith said that once to me, that I wouldn't believe in a million years that you were wild. So this is what I want to tell you, that sometimes as Christians, we want to be in the missionary position the whole time.
Too much mission.
The whole time missionary position. No, that is not holy. That is not holy.
Exactly. Holy.
You should do it as long as both people in the act are comfortable with it. Do it. Go as wild as you can. In fact, going wild, you find you don't even as myself began to go wild, I couldn't believe this is me doing this, because you enjoy it so much. You don't want just to be able to give. You want to be able to receive. And sometimes in giving you receive, but you also want not just to give in order to receive, but also the other person to just give freely. So position, be as wild as you can, as long as it's comfortable and it's within the boundaries of your own marriage. And it's very, very, if you want to spice up your marriage, move out from the missionary position. Do something different. Yeah. Do something different and keep getting new ideas. And how you get new ideas sometimes is just to open up with a friend and tell them, oh, I remember, I think I was married for about 2 years, a year, and I was in Zambia, and a childhood friend of mine who had gotten married a year before me. So we were talking one time and she said, oh, you know what I did yesterday? Something just blew his mind. I did something sexual and it blew his mind off. I wanted to learn. What did you do? And so, yeah, so I sit there and she just says, okay. I put my legs up and I held my ankles and this is what I did. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if I'll be able to do that, but I'll try. And I tried it and it just didn't blow his mind off. It blew me away. So it's when you want to be a part of it, you want to be able to do this with your partner, that you get blown away. So positions, Nothing is sinful, acceptable or not acceptable, just as long as both people are in agreement.
Wow, just a lot. I don't have the words, but you know, it's very important that we interject right here because of the number of questions that we've been asked. Even up until yesterday, somebody sent me a message who I haven't heard from in years, you know, and she asked me if it is that my husband and I have just become marriage coaches now, where we're inviting people to, you know, that kind of thing. We've been asked, oh, is this just for married people? You know, what about single people? Just various questions. And I said that I was going to share at the beginning, but I didn't remember until now. And I want to share that when we talk about marriage, it's for everybody, as long as God has not specifically said to you or called you to a life of singleness, then it's for everybody. And so, as long as, I mean, you're of age then, per se, you know. So when we talk about marriage and sex, it's for us. God made it for us. So I don't feel cute for us talking about it. And our marriages need strengthening. Our marriages need pillars, you know, to brace us up. And like, we need a village. And so when we talk about marriage, or when we invite you, or when somebody else invites you, nothing is wrong if you're single, because you're supposed to learn. So that, like, when I heard her, when I was just introduced now to the whole imbusa thing, I'm like, oh my God, like, we need to do this. I don't know how, but we need to find a way, because who is teaching our children? And I've been saying it. Who is teaching our young women and our young men about sex and intimacy and relationship and marriage, in marriage, when they get married? Who is preparing them? Who is nurturing them? So we can't have it. Can't be that it's the dancehall artist and you know, the little boy down the road and the little man on the corner and, you know, that predator on the internet and everybody else teaching our young people about sex and relationship, but the godly way or what God intended then is not being taught. Or if it is being taught, it's just in mentioning or in preaching this word, you know, or that kind of thing. Restrictive. Or in a very restrictive way. It has to be that we have to be intentional and deliberate about teaching our young women and our young men, and many of the things that I know now in terms of principles. If I weren't taught those in, you know, little mini lessons with my pastor's wife on, you know, impromptu moments, or her intentionally say, listen, ladies, I want to talk to you about this, I wouldn't have been prepared in some way. And I was reflecting yesterday to somebody that when I was little, because I could sing at 8 years old, I was going to choir practice with my mother, and everybody else was like 40, 50, and I would cry because I would not want to go. But then on Sunday, I was the only little girl in church who was able to sing those hymns, and I'm singing because she brought me, right? Even though she brought me against my will. And afterward, I got so used to it, I just wanted to go. And I felt so proud that I was able to sing with the adults, and I was singing on the adult choir at 9, 8, 10 years old. So all I'm saying is it's needed, and if you are invited, we're glad to welcoming you as a single person, as a person who is dating, as somebody who is engaged, whatever stage you are, as long as God has not called you to a life of singleness, it is for you. We can't make the world take sex from us. God made it for us, and it has to be spicy, and we're going to find some way that the Lord is going to inspire us or give us, you know, the resources that we need to create some kind of imbusa. Are we, amen coming?
Amen. Yeah, I really feel so too, Erica, and that was my lasting impression, having encountered Mutale and her tradition from her ethnic group, the Bemba people, that we needed something like this. Who is teaching our young women or young men? And if they are not being taught, then what are we doing? What are they doing? You know, so the marriages are almost like second best. They're not the best, or the sex life in the marriage is not the best, because we are not taking charge or taking hold of this good thing that God has given. And Dayne is saying, especially Christians, because you will find the little baby, if they're not Christians, the mother will encourage them and say, wind your waist, wind your waist. And we shun that as Christians, and albeit I think it should be done in a particular context, right? So who teaches the Christian woman how to whine, how to thrust, how to pleasure yourself and also pleasure your husband.
Body
Who
parts.
teaches, yes, or who teaches you how to break it down and how to one drop? Who teaches you that? And if you're not being taught, then it not happen.
Yeah.
So, and that's sad. If
Yeah.
we go back to the grave, not fully tapping into this aspect that God has given to us, then that is sad. As Mutale said, that has
service announcement. If it makes you uncomfortable to call those positions or moves, you know, in that kind of lingua, you can give them special names, you know. You can go right ahead.
I wanted to add something,
Yes.
and I would say I wholesale agree. I grew up in the church. Even I was in the church from in my mother's belly. So I'm the third of three, and I think I would say I was saying to my husband, I'm happy for my mother, and he says, "Why you say that?" I said, "Because she broke a barrier for us and for you know, a lot of people in our church when she took over in terms of the ladies ministry, and she started to bring in persons to do couple sessions in the church, and they were becoming more open because when she expressed to us that when my father and her got married, they were quite young. She was 18 and he was 21, but at the time they were walking on the road as a married couple, and I'm holding hands, and a missionary said, tell them so them bright or them fear walk on the road and a whole and they were married couple. And you know, they learned a lot about going to your bed and covering up and make sure your head tie and the whole 9 yards. But I love the fact that she broke that mold and really was open with us, with myself and my sister and my brother, about these things. And it's something that even to this day I talk to my mother about sex, and I'm not afraid to do that because of the relationship. And so I think for me that has made me a confident wife. And you know, my other friend Stefan is on here. She invited me. We have a group of wives that we deal with, and one of the things that we always encourage each other. Listen, when you're feeling on your downest days, you can't be a good wife, and it's okay to go in the mirror and to go naked in the mirror and talk to yourself and say, listen, my body look good, it feels good. Because when you become confident in yourself as a wife and confident with who you are and how you look, it makes you even more sexy to your husband, and you feel empowered to want to give your best when it comes to sex. So I really appreciate what I can't call a name and I'm not going to try.
Mutale.
I really appreciate that. And I 100% agree and wholesale agree. I have a daughter, and it is my desire that when she's of age, that her and I will be able to have these conversations. Likewise, my son, who is 16. So, you know, when me talk to him get shy now because I'm open like that. I'm like, listen, this is what's happening with your body. And I talk to him. So he's kind of like, Mom, don't do that, whatever. But I want him to learn from home and not as the couple before said, from anybody else on the street or at school. I want him to learn those things about himself and his body, and when the time comes, how to please him wife from my husband and I. And so I wholesale agree with this, what you said before, 100%.
So I want to call all the things that we've learned tonight nuggets. These are like big festivals, some big fritters, some chunks, right? This is a record. I mean, we've gone over 2.5 hours. My God, this was supposed to be only for 90 minutes. Woo! My God.
So we have gotten the session 1, 2, and 3, 4 in the one session.
That there are a number of questions that I don't know if we can get them answered right now. We may have to have another session. So what you have to do is, for those who miss it, because we have a number of persons who they really can't make it on a Thursday night, but they say, listen, you have to find a way to give us a video. So what we do is we upload them on our YouTube page, Wamof Ministries, WAMOF Ministries, and you can get, so by the time we're done here tonight, by tomorrow morning, it will be up and you can watch it or share it with those who missed it. And we have an Instagram page called Wamof_19. You can, I'm not saying follow us to follow us, but for you to see in terms of the announcements and the different times and the events. you can check that page to see it, or you can just ask the person who invited you here tonight. So however you came, we're really glad that you did, and we realize that our village is growing and will grow bigger and bigger. And the imbusa is coming. We're working on the imbusa in Jesus' name. So we have to find out if Miss
Mutale
has anything else that she wants to share. If Reverend Dayne Grant has anything that he would like to share, or if Judith has anything else, Pastor Judith has anything else that she wants to share, and we probably have to close out tonight to have our other session next week, because we can't do it all in one night, and we've gone 2.5 hours.
I think I've said it all. If you know of those who shared with you, Erica and Warren, who need, you know, specialized attention, then I'm available, and I'm sure Mutale can make herself available. And
right, so we'll pass on their info. Just send us a message, and we'll pass on the info.
Right. Yes, so some of the questions that are in the chat, we're hoping that we can, I don't know if you're looking at what to address them tonight, or maybe we need to do another session to address some of these, because they can take some amount of this discussion.
People want to learn new skills, and we can't discuss after all these fritters and nuggets that we just get. We have to digest them and come again next week, you know, to talk about the other things that other people really want to learn in terms of, you know, some skills that they want to acquire.
Okay.
Along with the papers that they got tonight. All right.
But a question though, apart from the whole skills thing, I think one of my friends asked a question about, in the whole of this, about oral sex and how it is that you view oral sex as a part of a Christian marriage. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And stuff like that. That would be a question I'd want to.
So well, I don't know if Pastor Judith will want to answer tonight, but what I know that I'll say is that what we do for the most part, I can tell you, and if you go to watch the other videos that we have on YouTube and ask persons who participate on a Thursday night, we try not to base anything on our opinion. Other than my little spicy game earlier, we make sure that everything goes back to what the Word of God says and what the Holy Spirit inspires us to say. So we want to say, oh, this is our opinion, follow our opinion. So we wouldn't give you, you know, responses based on our opinion like that. So
I wouldn't want it. I definitely would want it from a standpoint of what the Word says, not from an opinionated standpoint.
All right. So, Pastor, are we answering that tonight, or are we moving on to next week?
Well, I think so. Based on some comments, it seems that there's a request for another session.
Yes.
And also, with a request is for Reverend Dayne Grant to be more vocal and respond to some of these questions coming from some of us young men. Right, Reverend Grant?
Right, so yeah, but if I can quickly say in 30 seconds or less, just in case the person asking about the oral sex is really burning to do it tonight, that the Bible does not speak on the matter. What you'll find in the Bible is nothing about whether oral sex is right or it's wrong. What you'll see in the Bible is how a husband and wife should relate to each other, and how things should be done in moderation and with love and affection for the other person. So we, well, as Christians, there isn't you have a conservative view that says these things are worldly, but at the same time, there is a wider view that says because the Bible doesn't speak on it now, you use discretion within your marriage. And if it is that your partner is also willing and interested, and both of you agree, then in your marriage, in moderation, then your bed is undefiled. So be at peace, Teresa.
Thank you.
So friends, okay, so we're going to share the social media pages here. So let me share them, and you want to continue speaking, Erica.
All right, no, thank you for welcoming us in your homes. Lord, listen, I'm just dying to just hang up this call, you know, so thank you for...
We know, Erica, we know. Listen, everything we have spoken about this evening, for those of us who are already married, what makes it perfect is practice. And so as you depart tonight, go forth to practice. Have a good night and thanks for having us.
Thank you, Dr. Mutale. Thank you, Reverends.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So much. Thank you to everybody who
Thank
joined
you.
us
Thank
tonight
you.
for welcoming us into your homes. You can now go to your children and make sure that they're still sleeping while you do married people things in a very spicy way. God bless you. May your marriages be strengthened. And for those who left tonight and are still single, don't you worry. As long as the Lord has not called you to singleness, Mr. Right and Mrs. Right is on their way. Have a good night, everybody. Bless you.
Good night. Thank
Very
you.
informative.